Gabriella's gonna go dancing, celebrating. Awesome. Thanks to our panelists for being here. Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. I want to be respectful of y'all time, and I want there to be plenty of time for our panelists to give their insights and advice to you. Before we do that, I am going to quickly go over the homework that was due today. I met with Division of Career Pathways this morning, and they said that they can extend the due date for your big interview assignments until the end of the week, and so that they'll pass those along to get reviewed. By the end of the week, they'll start on the ones that have already joined in or have submitted. But I wanted to walk you through. I know some people had some struggles going in. So you just have to go to uci.biginterview.com. You'll log in with your UCI email address, or you have to create an account first, but make sure you create the account with your UCI email address. Once you sign in, you will be able to go either once you're signed in, you can click that link that's directly in the syllabus and it'll take you to the assignments page. But if it doesn't take you exactly to the assignments page, I'll show you where you can find that, hopefully, once it loads. Maybe. Y'all can keep filling in the emoji chats to let us know so we have something to look at besides my spinning wheel here. Here we go. So if you go into interviews, there is interview assignments, and then you'll put in the code right here. And the code's in the syllabus and in the emails that I sent out. And it'll tell you that there's going to be a 3-minute timer per each question. You go when you're ready, and then you'll see that there's only 2 questions that you have to answer. And there'll be someone who asks you your question. They'll count down. You have up to 3 minutes to give your response. And then we'll go to the second question. Once those are recorded, you'll hit submit, and then staff from Division of Career Pathways will provide feedback for you. Okay, so for those of you, I think there was 7 or 8 of you that got it in already by today, so thanks for doing that. For those who didn't get a chance, if you can get it in by the end of the week, then you'll have staff be able to give you some feedback. Any questions on that before we get started? Okay, great. So this is our last Zoom session of the Career Transition Series. So thanks for sticking in there with us. Our 5th session next week, we're going to, or not next week, our next meeting, which will be June 4th, we'll transition to our in-person networking mixer with our some local professionals around Orange County and LA. So I'm super excited about that. I'll send out more information, and I'm adding more info into the syllabus for you. But today, we have a great panel on thriving in your new role. So what happens? You get the job. What does that transition look like? What are some lessons learned or some advice, some strategies from people who have made that transition or help folks make that transition? And so we have some awesome panelists here to share that with you. I shared their LinkedIn's and some information with them in your email beforehand, so hopefully you got a chance to check them out. But what we'll do first is maybe just each of panelists, if you want to give a quick 1-minute overview of yourself and maybe where you're at or a recent transition that you went through, that can get us started, and then we'll dive into some questions. Please feel free also to use the chat to ask questions. We'll try to make it flow more like conversation instead of just question, answer, question, answer. So feel free to be participatory in the chat or tag the panelists in a chat question, and they can check that out as well as we're going through. All right, Damien, you're in my top corner, so do you want to go ahead and start us off?
Sure. Thank you so very much, Lauren, for inviting me, and thank you everyone for attending. And thank you for taking a genuine interest in your own career development. I say that very earnestly because you'll be surprised in how many people don't take that into consideration in the workforce. And I see this from employers all the time. So thank you. My name is Damien Wilpitz. I am a former scientist turned business person. I was at the bench for a number of years, and then I started running a lot of program managements for cancer research over at Harvard Medical School. And then from that, I did a lot of transitions from academia into academic faculty and to industry, particularly biotech entrepreneurs. One of the challenges was in and around developing how people see their own careers. And organically from that, I was able to transition my own career in helping facilitate that transition for academics into the industry or the business speak, if you will. And from that I started experimental designs consulting. And it was purely organic because this was just not in the field. And through that, I helped in negotiations, from contract negotiations to deep development and to overall building of the laboratory. A lot of people are surprised when you're a faculty, they give you a X number of cash and say, here, start a business. We're never really taught that during our graduate or postdoctoral training. And that's a kind of a big feat. And from that, these are some practical business skills and life skills that I've been helping other scientists for the past like almost 5 years. My own transition has been genuinely, I followed my heart, for lack of a better term, and I leveraged the skills that actually helped to follow that. My passion still is always in innovative, creative, scientific designs and helping other scientists. My skill set is in and around business and management. I was able to translate a lot of the scientific side into business practical skill sets. And that has been awesome. I love what I do. It's been really great. And I find myself very fortunate to develop that. And it's been great. So that's me in a nutshell.
I love it. You tapped in what we've been learning too with we had Amy and Quadwo come and talk about the 3P code and understanding your passion, your skills, your interest, all of that. And you tapped into that in your transition. So thank you. Béné, you are next on my screen. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Benedict. You can call me Béné. I use she, her pronouns. I'm currently a postdoc at Boston University in postdoc affairs. And before transitioning into this administrative postdoc, which is kind of a new type of postdoc now, I did a PhD in biology and then did a postdoc between a wet lab and a dry lab. So I was doing research between a biology lab and an epidemiology/mathematical modeling lab. And so over the course of my career, I've transitioned from a different fields to from a bunch of different fields to other different fields. So from chemistry to biology to mathematical modeling, and now postdoc affairs, which is a very different field, but a field that I very much enjoy and that is very much aligned again with my values, interests, and my I would say appetite and interest in helping others kind of discern what their career is and also support them in their career transitions. And I kind of fell into this career. Actually, it started by volunteering. I was volunteering in a postdoc association, realized that many people needed career development support, needed support to explore different types of careers and then transition. Started networking with people in grad affairs, postdoc affairs, and realized that actually it could be a job by itself. And so that's how I decided to look for opportunities and transitioned. And I also transitioned into a permanent position, again, in grad affairs to help more master's and PhD students navigate grad school successfully and then transition into careers aligned with what they're looking for.
Béné forging her own path. I love it. Joanne, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hello, everyone. It's been a while being back at GPS STEM events. So I'm currently a lead reviewer for stereotaxic and navigational systems at the Food and Drug Administration. I essentially look at files and medical devices and their requests to be able to bring those into market. I evaluate, are they safe? Are they effective? And can people use it? And can we leverage new technologies that come from academia and bring it out into the field? So that's a bit of what I'm doing now. But where I came from, I had actually pursued my PhD because I wanted to look at where innovation comes from. I noticed there was a lack of technology for mental health devices, for medical devices. And I wanted to see, where do these new ideas come from and how do they get started? And that was sort of my guiding light when I did end up pursuing my PhD, completed that in 2022 for biomedical engineering, had pursued for about a year a spin out of my PhD thesis to bring that to market, as well as straddling GPS STEM's program director role. And I had found a deeply rooted love in I want to help others, whether that was to bring goodness in their life in terms of health, or goodness in their life of figuring out who they want to be when they grow up, when they're ready to move on from their PhDs, their postdocs, their masters. And so there's a lot of joy that comes into that. And my step towards FTA was to continue to fulfill that type of role of being a public servant and being able to help bring change to health and wellness to everyone. So that's sort of a bit of everything. A little couple more tidbits is that if you are interested, since this is more career focused, I was able to do an internship during my PhD. I had a second offer, but that ended up getting canceled. So almost like a 1.5 for various reasons, which I can take a deeper dive into, but wanted to offer that as another point of interest because of the topic.
Wonderful. Thank you, Joanne. I know a lot of people ask that. Is it possible to do an internship in a PhD program? And the answer is yes. Yeah. Thank you so much. All right. Last but not least, Phong.
Thanks, Laura. Thanks, panelists and old friends here and new friends, new faces. Some of you we've met before. I work as one of two grad counselors embedded within grad division. I work mostly with grad students, but also postdocs around this umbrella of academic progress, research progress, through the maintenance or development of work-life balance, communication development, and also stress management. So I'm probably one of the few, if not the only non-bench scientists in this group. So I bring maybe a little bit different perspective, although I really think the wellness work you're doing, Joanne, is super cool. But that's sort of where I exist, if you will, within academia. My training is as a clinical psychologist. I stepped into an academic counselor's role. And when we're talking about transitions, relatively recently, a couple of years ago, I became the director of wellness and inclusion, also within grad division. So with any new role, there's more responsibilities, there's more conflict, there's more stress. So whatever field we're in and whatever setting, I think underlying that is always the need for wellness and mentorship and communication skills development. So that's kind of the area I try to work in. So.
Awesome. We love that you are here at UCI, Phong. Thank you. All right. So I'm going to go to some starter questions for us. And again, folks, let me know if you have other questions specifically that you want to ask panelists. You can use the chat for that. But maybe Joanne and Béné, maybe you're most recent to the transition. And so maybe you two can answer these questions, and I'll kind of do 2 in 1. So answer which parts you want. But what most surprised you about the transition into the roles that you're in, or the recent transitions you've had, upcoming transitions that you're going to have? And the second part of that question is, did your graduate program prepare you for the demands of your current job, or not prepare you? And what aspects can you kind of talk to about that? And so either Béné or Joanne, if you want to start.
Yeah, I can go first, because I was actually very positively surprised. Because I transitioned from, doing research in a lab setting where my time was not my own, right? My time was my parasites, basically. And so it was, their life cycle were determining whether I would work late, whether I would have to work on weekends and so on. And so transitioning into kind of a 9-to-5 environment was a very interesting transition, a very good one for my own wellness, but also kind of a challenging one, because it's like, what do I do with all this free time? And it doesn't mean that we don't also have times where we need to work extra hours, right? At some point with my current PI, we decided to work on a grant proposal. And so we had to put a lot of time into this because we discovered the whole call for proposals a month before the due date. And so there are times like that where we have to put a lot more time and energy into our projects, but in general, my work-life balance has been so much better. And it's one of the reasons why I do not regret the transition at all. So that was probably the thing that surprised me the most. And it was very encouraging to rediscover what it's like to own your time, what it's like to decide how you want to spend your time. Because I honestly had not given a lot of thoughts to it when I was a PhD student and then a postdoc. I assumed that because everyone around me was overworking, I should overwork, and that would be a good, mark for productivity. And having to do this transition into a more role where things are very defined, where I'm not expected to send emails late in the evening, for example, kind of helped me rethink my relationship to work, helped me and encouraged me actually to ask questions. What am I expecting to do? What am I expected to do? How much time am I actually expected to spend at work every day? What are expectations around weekends? And if my priorities in my life outside of work change, how does that impact the time I spend at work? So I encourage you to think about all these questions, and I encourage you to also ask a lot of questions, not do like me, where I assumed that because others were doing something, this was the norm and this is what I had to do. I encourage you to really be clear and ask very clear questions about expectations, about, the time needed to answer emails, for example, or how much time should be spent at work, outside of work, so that you take care of yourself and you make the most of the transition. And it's a good way to also establish new habits as well, right? The new job is a good opportunity to come up with a good rhythm. So yeah, I'll end my soapbox there.
I think that's wonderful. In fact, you hit on a lot of, that was one of the things that I felt very seen when you said, oh my goodness, I have my own time. I have my own choices. And I'm learning that I can say, hey, what are your expectations? Here are mine. Can we meet somewhere? And that was like, I'm still learning how to do that right now. So thank you for capturing that. To sort of address both questions at the same time, one of which what surprised me most, and also did my PhD program prepare me, because they're kind of one in one. I was very surprised at how much can transfer. I really struggled with imagining what my PhD meant for me, because it was so atypical of the path that I traditionally thought it was. So I had, a startup company that came out of it. I was doing commercialization. I was looking at what does the market care about my product, as opposed to what does the innovation look like and how does that look like. I got to do a Q submission for FDA during my time, and we were submitting at a grant level for commercialization. So these questions were so different than what I was typically taught, and I was struggling with seeing where this all fit in. Simultaneously, I had so many different interests that I was not sure how everything would fall together. For example, I was actually interning in quotations at GPS STEM for project management, program management, for fun, because I found my people there when I did not find my people in my cohort. I was also networking and volunteering in the local community for medical devices. I also was doing some art projects on the side, and some of that art projects, the video editing and the music editing, audio editing, became podcast editing for GPS STEM. And so there were so many things that I was doing that I had no way of putting together what that might actually look like. And it came as a pleasant surprise to see that everything that you do, you can find a creative way to piece that into what you do in the future, or you may be able to find a different way to use that as a advantage in your application. And so I share this with tongue in cheek, because during my interview for my current position, I was actually asking my now supervisor, why did you pick me? And why are we interviewing today? Not that I advise you necessarily to ask that question, but it was because I had actually applied for a second position and I didn't know which one it was that I was interviewing for. So she had actually responded back and said it was your transferable skills that you are able to take and move from everything that you've done, whatever your PhD looked like, whatever you did out in the community, and be able to move that in. And I believed it when I heard it. And then when I actually am doing it now, I see that more clearly, how you're looking at a lot of documents, you're digesting a lot of information, and you're also trying to develop SOPs and documentations, and then communicating it to a stakeholder. So that was sort of a roundabout way of sharing that I had sort of a abnormal, from my perspective, PhD, and that transferred beautifully into what I do on a day-to-day basis now at FDA. And in the grand scheme of things, when I think back as to why I pursued my PhD in the first place, it was to work on medical devices. It was to create help and to create resources for others. And so that has fully aligned in some magical, wonderful way. So that would be my response to that.
Yeah, thank you both. I really appreciate both the insights and the lessons learned, the struggles you had during the PhD and the transition, but also the beauty in that as well. And I might ask a follow-up question. Anyone could answer this. But both of you kind of had this feeling of during your program not feeling like your time was your own, and then that kind of difficulty in realizing like I have like boundaries and there's time and I don't have to do this. And thinking back, were there things you could have done in your program to already kind of help with that mindset? Because I know, Béné, you said you had to rethink like how you viewed time and how you view boundaries and structure and stuff. And were there things you could have done in your program now? So these are folks on the call right there in their last 1 to 2 years, maybe before they're transitioning. And so are there things they can be doing now to set themselves up to already be establishing that and feel that? And again, Joanne, Béné, you can answer, or Damien, Phong, if you have insights too, feel free to chime in.
Yeah, I'll jump in real quick on that. I think there's this very real ratio in some companies, in some departments, this 80-20 ratio of 80% of the work being done by 20% of the folks, So absolutely, time boundaries that Béné was talking about, super important. Protect your weekends, that sort of thing. No emails past 5. But beyond that, I think for me, giving thought to like what career longevity actually means and the foundation that really is this idea of setting very particular behavioral and mental boundaries. And I'll just share 3 things and then I'll open it up, or we can open it up to everyone else to add. One, I'm going to say, as I've learned during my career, the idea of under-promising in order to over-deliver is super important. The other way around is just going to be like a big stressor, losing sleep, all sorts of things, right? Number 2, most of us are probably already in the role of being a mentor, and that's super important. But equally, if not more important, is our own mental well-being. So I would say 2, work to elevate others, but never carry anyone's weight. And then 3, never lose sleep over anyone who ain't losing sleep over you. So those 3 ideas have really added to this cognitive shift in me that's helped maintain energy and hopefully longevity too.
Yeah, those are all amazing tips. I think one that I would add is listen to your body, right? If you feel tired, then really think about where the tiredness is coming from. Is it because you're not getting proper rest? Is it because it's because of stress, or is it because you haven't had coffee? Like, really try and have a sense of where the tiredness is coming from, because your body is sending you messages about, how you're actually feeling. And ignoring those in the long run can lead to serious health issues. And then not only that, right? It also impacts your ability to think creatively, to function very well, to not make mistakes. It impacts your ability to interact with others well and be present when you interact with others. So really listen to yourself. And I would say also make sure that you plan time to rest. Especially if you have a very busy schedule, make sure that rest and play also is a priority on your to-do list, that it's actually written on the list and that you'll assign it the same priority as you do to like experiments and other things. Because even stepping away from the lab for, maybe half an hour to go on a walk is going to have a huge impact on your mental health and your overall, wellness.
Yeah, if I might be able to add a couple 2 cents. I really love what Béné was talking about, understanding your own energy. I think a lot of challenge is understanding what that energy means in regards to your time. I think that it's not just analyzing your energy, but it's analyzing at what time of the day you have energy, what kind of activities you do that returns that energy, or what types of environments or people that also facilitates your energy, and then organize your schedule and time around that so your optimal productivity is in around that energetic flow. So for example, I know because I work with so many clients, and one of the things they do is a lot of writing, being at the computer to write. So is it in the middle of the day? Is it towards the evening? Or is that actually in your home office or your lab office? What are the times of that time? And then chunk block that. These are ways to be able to understand that. And then on top of it, the more you get familiar with that, the more you can communicate that to your colleagues. And so say, hey, I have time during this time to this time, and I have time to this time, because it is the lack of self-awareness of your energy regulation that creates more anxiety, because now you're utilizing other people to dictate that. What Phong was saying, that people don't really care about your energy, they care about theirs, but you want to be able to ensure that you communicate what they should care about as well. Because ultimately, like if you can't, I see too many times you burn out, and you kind of suck it up and you've ignored it too long, and you have this mental breakdown. You have no idea why.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So then if we transition a little bit in questions, and maybe if one or two of you want to take this one, what could be some of the most important things folks do in their first 30, 60, 90 days in their no role to make sure that they are aware of some of these things, that they're implementing these strategies, but then also to set themselves up for success, right? This might be one of the first times they're in maybe a non-academic space, or that they have these different responsibilities, right? And so what should they be doing in those first month, 2 months, 3 months? Damien, you had your hand up. You want to go first?
Oh my God. Ask your team or boss, what are the measurable success? Like, too many times I hear boss give some abstract goal, but like, what is the physical outcome, the deliverable? Like, ask them, like, what do they expect? And if they don't know, tease it out and kind of like set that up. Because if you don't, I promise you, what you'll get measured upon isn't necessarily what you thought you were actually you were including in a measure upon. Because this abstract notion of success is different for every single person. And if you get that at the very first 1 to 2 weeks, like, hey, I'm super excited. I really want to do a good job. I really want to ensure that like this team is successful. What do you think are some of the first things that we should accomplish within the first 60 days, 90 days? I want to make sure that I prioritize and focus. And then systematically, weekly, to assure, is this still the goal? Is this still the goal? Is this still the goal? And then I guarantee you're going to be so much happier at the end of those 90 days. They will be happy you're happy. I'm just saying that it's outright because I constantly get this with a lot of bosses and faculty and CEOs and C-suites. They don't say this outright at the beginning. They're like, oh, I hired you to make this successful. But like, what does that mean?
Yeah, so true. Thank you.
One thing that I can add to is I really want to encourage you to get to know folks around you, get to have a sense of what they're doing, who can help you with what at any type of point. And I encourage you also to ask questions, again, because this is a mistake I've made, right? To transition into a postdoc in a brain you feel that I didn't know anything about. And I was like, it's fine, I'll figure it out. Don't want to appear like I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And in the end, I think it had an impact on my postdoc and my ability to do my work well. So I would encourage you to really ask questions, show curiosity, show that you want to learn, and also reciprocate with people, right? Because this is how you will build trust, and this is how you'll build lasting relationship that will support you throughout your career, throughout the role, and then also your career as well. within and beyond the institution.
I missed what Béné said, but I'm sure it was great. We can move on to another question as well. And this kind of goes into maybe some challenges that you all faced in that beginning transition. And maybe what were some of those challenges? Can we shine some light on that so folks can maybe go in with some awareness? And if you have a perspective, do these challenges differ between domestic and international graduates? And especially thinking of more of that industry transition. Or outside of their postdoc, it could be into their postdoc, Béné, as well for you, and moving outside of their current role as PhD student.
Do you mind repeating that again, Lauren? Sorry.
Yeah, so what were
Cut out
some
for
of
a second there.
the biggest challenges that you all face maybe in the beginning, or that you can think of that STEM PhDs are facing when they make these transitions outside of their programs? And are there different maybe challenges between domestic and international graduates?
I can start. Damien, are you good? I see you.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
I apologize. Something that was very stark to me in terms of the challenges that I realized even coming in is that the questions that I'm asking, that I have critical thinking skills in terms of from an academic standpoint, from how do we get a startup and how do we try to break into a market and how do we get a product market fit? Those are questions that were excellent for what I had done previously for program management and trying to launch a startup. But they are different questions than the regulatory types of questions that I have to ask and the types of knowledge base that I need to know in order to make regulatory decisions. And so that to me has been, it's I wouldn't say that it's a break all type of challenge. It's something that I recognize that I just don't have the experience. I don't have the knowledge base for the regulatory sciences. I don't have the jargon for it. Like I'm still learning how to make the types of descriptions and the phrasing, even sort of and immersing myself in the government legalese type of quotations that you would have to put into your responses to sponsors or the folks that submit their submissions. And so that to me has been sort of one of the main challenges, is just realizing that I don't have this knowledge base. I'm a beginner at this and I'm going to have to learn, and I want to learn very quickly. And so that is sort of an internal frustration of knowing that I don't have this background, but still taking that on and acknowledging that that is going to be my uphill battle until 1 or 2 years down the line. And even moving forward, I've heard other folks within the FDA say that they're in their 5th, 7th year and they're still learning something new. And I think that's something to celebrate in itself. But I know the initial hurdle is there just simply out of the questions that I have asked myself previously and what I have to ask myself now.
Yeah, I can add to that real quick also, just in terms of transitioning, like my own challenges. I think academic trauma is very real. 5 or 6 years in grad school will do that to you. So please, have a therapist. This shouldn't be normalized. It should just already be the norm, especially if you're transitioning into a new position. So that's one thing. 2, this idea of creating more of a mind shift from a deficit mind shift to a strength-based one is very important, in my opinion. Wherever that comes from, not exactly sure, but it's probably some sort of intersection between culture, family, and academia. John Guzowski in MBB tells us that we generate 6,000 thoughts in our own minds every day, and 80% of them are negative. So that's something to consider in terms of why it's so important to create these sort of mind shifts, right? If I say, Lauren, my very non-clinical way of describing this position is if I say, Lauren, you suck and I suck, you don't suck, Lauren. But if I say that, that's depression. If I say I'm amazing and you suck, Lauren, that's narcissism. if I say I suck and you're amazing, which you are, Lauren, that's where that sort of deficit mindset, imposter syndrome lives and will remain with us unless we cognitively, behaviorally, and spiritually, emotionally address it on different levels. Okay, so going from good to gooder is always going to be more preferable than going from like bad to catching up to wherever you want it to be. So that's number 2, that mind shift. 3, like managers have an equal impact on your mental health as your own spouse. So even while starting a new position, like please think of it as an ongoing job interview. They're interviewing you, but you are also interviewing them in terms of their mentorship style, their advisement, coaching style, the structures in place for you to be successful as a young professional. On top of these 3 things, like international students, which Lauren asked about, they from my office, they really struggle with this idea of community because most international students are probably coming from a collectivist society, and it's a really hard shift, sometimes coming to a big R1 where you're expected to work independently most of the time. 2, uncovering that sort of invisible curriculum in the US academia system. And then also 3, which Lauren mentioned in the chat box, and we can get into later on, but this idea of communicating and asking for what you need. So lots of different layers there, but I'll pause.
Do you mind if I add to that as well, Phong? Like you have a ton of tidbits, which is great. I know I'm going to tell from my own transition, and then because I've worked with hundreds of thousands of academic faculty to transition into their own careers, and I know I experienced it as well for my own transition. Is this, I don't know what it is during the academic training, but you get beat down so often. You have so much negative thoughts within you, it exacerbates your own imposter syndrome. And then we're taught that we're intelligent, so we anchor onto this identity of intelligence, and then we go, why can't I figure this out? I'm smart, I'm smart enough, but I don't believe it. And so therefore we overanalyze everything, but not realizing we're biased towards negative thoughts. So we find fault in everything we do. And so we will hold ourselves back. Most of the challenge, I know for myself, I found this out. So I am different from everyone here because I'm called a failed PhD. So I actually dropped out of my PhD to do my master's and just bowed out with a master's. However, I felt really imposter syndrome around that for such a long time. But then the moment I pulled myself out, I had a great mentor who was like, this is fine. You actually have to shift. A PhD is a tool to help you to live your life that you want to live. And so you start to let go of these labels that you've been geared towards. You're a scientist, you're an academic, you are all of this, because then you start to like, well, what do I want? And then so once you start to like reverse engineer from what you want, you create. And I think the number one thing that has helped me through this, I love a book by Carol Dweck, Mindset. It's a really good book that helps you to realize you can change your belief structures, you can shift, develop new frameworks for thinking about your reality, and then reverse engineer, how does this actually help me? And I think for my thing, it was developing a vision for one's life. And so you may not know exactly where you're going to be in the next 5 to 10 years, but you have an idea of what you like and don't like, and just on a regular, consistent basis, start working and chiseling at. And a vision really helps you to anchor onto some emotional future of a desire. And then this is where the intellect, your intelligence really helps you to kind of like, oh, I can try this, I can try this. But that imposter syndrome, God, it's just really, it's loud. And I've seen people that have more acronyms at the end of their name than in their name feel the insecurities. And I see too many people hold themselves back as a result.
Amazing. I feel like I'm having my own little mini therapy session here. So thank you all. I know, Béné, you were off of mute too, and I want to make sure you have a chance to share. Do you want to add into this conversation?
No, I think most of the points have been made, but one thing that did help me, in addition to having a great mentor and in addition to being in a great environment too, is actually writing down the thoughts I had, right? Writing down how am I feeling right now? And so there are different exercises that you can do. Like, for example, if you have a lot of anxiety about maybe giving a talk, for example, sitting in the room and writing down, okay, my anxiety level is at this point, and a few minutes later it's at this point, and having kind of a graph of like, how is my anxiety actually going throughout the time that I'm giving this talk? And writing down the thoughts, which sometimes are called ANTs, automatic negative thoughts, and trying to see how true they are, and if they're true, what would actually happen? Like, what would be the impact of these thoughts becoming true? And is it actually this bad? And 5 years down the road, if that were to be true, would it still have an impact in your life? And so forcing myself to write those things down, like journaling and being very observant of all the things that are going on in my brain, actually helped me realize that those are weird thoughts going on in my brain, but they're not necessarily real. Like, they don't actually determine who I am, but they have an impact on what I do. So so I do encourage you to see how you can help yourself be more self-aware about imposter thoughts. And over time, you'll see that the impact they have on yourself are actually is going to decrease over time because of the intentional effort you put into analyzing what's going on. And this has been supremely helpful. It has helped me, of course, boost my self-confidence, but it's also helped me make more mistakes and be fine with making mistakes. But this also happened because, again, I was in a supportive environment and I had an amazing mentor. So some things can be done. You can cope as an individual, in a good environment. It's going to be more tricky in a more difficult environment. So don't think, again, that everything is on you to solve this, right? You can only do so much, and the environment in which you are is going to impact you as well. And thank you so much for all the resources you shared in the chat, Phong and Lauren.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, that's kind of, oh, go ahead, Phong. I'll say it leads me into asking you your specific question, but you go ahead, take it.
Just real quick about Gabriella's statement about procrastination and tying what Damien was talking about with the imposter syndrome. There's actually a subtype called imposter syndrome procrastination subtype, right? And the way it lives in academia is like you're amazing at generating data, you're awesome at analyzing it, but you get stuck at the writing process because there's so much judgment around that. So I think that's why when Béné is talking about like getting feedback, meeting with your mentor, having that support network, it's just super important to have whether it's like an informal writing group or getting something more formalized through like writing support.
Well, GPS STEM members, hold tight because we're going to have a writing retreat coming up probably next month. So good timing for that as well. But Phong, building off of this conversation, I did have a question I want to ask you about. Are there coping mechanisms that we can have to help navigate some of these emotional aspects of starting a new role? So that's stress, the anxiety, the imposter syndrome. Are there things that we can do to help navigate these?
Yeah, I think this idea of like having a parallel identity is super important. And if others want to add to this, feel free. But absolutely, you should be proud to identify yourself as a researcher, as a scientist, as an innovator. But in parallel with that, like, please, like, open up, expand also from that point of strength, if you will. Whether you want to add rock climbing, whether you want to be a yoga instructor, whether you identify yourself as a furry pet lover like myself, these sort of things, right? Like multiple layers of who you are in order to continue to develop professionally and personally. I will pause there. There's much more I can add, but feel free to add to that if you would like, panelists.
Yeah, can I add a little bit to that? I love this, Phong, because you just said it, the parallel identities. And I think a lot of people don't realize this concept of I have multiple identities in myself. And I take people through an exercise of like wearing a different hat. And so who you are as like a sibling is going to be completely different than who you are as a scientist. And your belief structures come from that identity. your behaviors, your feelings, and what you act and behave as if. And so what like Phong was saying is that like, because of that, you are allowed to shift between the different identities to help manage each other. I really love the movie, the Disney movie Inside Out. It's a really good movie that it summarizes exactly all of these different identities within us. But you have to recognize that this is part of you and not you at the same time. I don't want to get too abstract and esoteric around it, but the fact that you can start to realize, wait, okay, I might not be this person in this situation, but I can be this person in this situation. So the identities will start to fit the tools or the path that you're taking. And so you can start to shift. All right, this is creative Damien in this moment. Okay, this is more practical Damien in this moment. And then you can start to shift and use these as tools and strategies to help yourself, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I love that. And I think probably as PhD students, as postdocs, sometimes those identities just get kind of blended together and you don't really understand the differentiation between them. And when that transition happens and now all of a sudden it's 5 o'clock and you have literally nothing to do, no responsibility, trying to find those identities again of, oh, I do love to rock climb. I love my fur babies. I'm going to have those pieces and build those back up again. I can imagine it might take some time to make sure you have that. And I know, especially in the US, right, we say things like, I am a scientist, I am a counselor, and we own our jobs as our identities, right? It's not, oh, I work as a scientist, it's I am a scientist, right? And that is a big part of our identity, and I appreciate that so much. I know we're coming up on time, so I want to make sure I get to ask some of these other questions of our panelists, given their expertise. But Béné, are there some unique challenges that you faced kind of transitioning, given the fact that you are an international student, international postdoc? Are there things that you can kind of shed light for our group here?
There's so many of them. So yesterday when I was preparing, I started writing a list. But anyway, I'm going to try and make it as structured as I can. So first of all, I want to acknowledge that I am from France, so being French is an amazing privilege when you're looking for a visa. Like, you know, depending on the country you're from, this is going to impact you in so many ways. So every situation is unique, right? Depending on where you're from, depending on the kind of visa you're looking for, and depending on, you know, your background as well, right? If you got a US degree, you can get an OPT visa, for example, whereas if you didn't, you cannot. You can look for like a J1 and so on. And so politics as well have a huge impact on visas, and we saw it specifically during the pandemic. Like I had so many international friends who could not go back home for a wide range of reasons, people who couldn't come again for a wide range of reasons. And so there's so much going on that is so much beyond your control. It's going to impact the way you plan your career, right? Initially, I had not planned to stay in the US and find a job, but hey, now I want to stay in the US and find a permanent position. And so I had to think about, how do I want to apply for my green card? When should I apply for my green card? When is it most strategic to think about this? How should I include it in my career plan? How should I talk about it with my boss so that she supports me? Who can be an ally for me as I make my career progress and as I think about the visa and so on? So that's all the complicated stuff, right? The paperwork, the visa, and all of this. But beyond this, I mean, there's so many other things that impact a transition, right? Language is so different. I was taught British English at school, and then I came here and I started talking to people about their trousers, and they were like, what? And so, oh, it's pants, never mind. So little things like that. The food is so much different. The food you find in grocery stores is so much different. The cost of living is completely different. How to take public transportation is completely different. Like I had a whole adventure in Boston trying to buy like a pass to take the bus before I realized that you can only buy it in underground stations. And so now they're starting to change it, but like, you know, funny things like that. So, but the culture also is vastly different. And coming from France, you would think that going from a Western culture to another Western country, you know, would be the same, but it's actually extremely different. The US culture is much more individualistic, and there's much more autonomy and independence, right? Each individual wants to do their own thing. They want to have their own space. They want to do their own, you know, And so coming from a culture that was a bit more socially closed, but there was more like social interactions and we were chatting very differently, having conversations very differently. All of these had an impact on how I was interacting with others. And it also impacted, culture at work, right? So how much do you interact at work, outside of work? How personal can you be with your advisor? How much negotiation can you do, right? In France, you do not negotiate much, but here you have to negotiate, right? You have to sell yourself. You have to be very like, no, I deserve this salary. Give me this thing. So there's so many different things that I think are worth considering. And what I would encourage people to do if you're considering moving abroad for your next position is to see if you can connect with people there, both people from your own country to see how they've managed the transition, and locals as well, to have a sense of what feels very natural to them, what they would see as being norms, so to speak, and how they can help you also think about all these different parameters, like not just the visa, but also the culture and how you find a house and how to, manage your life. So I said a lot in a few minutes, but I hope that gives you a good sense of all the different things you can have in mind as you're planning a transition, especially if it's an international one.
Yeah, that's so helpful. Thank you so much, Béné. And like you said, there probably could have an entire hour just on this topic alone. So I appreciate you kind of putting those into a little package for us for today. Damien, I'm going to ask one last question for you just because of your experience. But what are some of the specific skills that PhDs can really translate well for industry? And utilize them really, especially in that transition into that new role. Are there specific skills you can kind of highlight or focus in on for us?
Oh, great question. So this one part that like a lot of PhD trainees don't realize within the business world is their analytical side, their ability to break down processes and to even do like a pilot experiment and to analyze data. I think so much in business is just like fly by the seat of your pants and a very reactive. However, the methodological approach to taking a thesis, a general thesis, and breaking it down into experimental methods is very unique to a scientist training or engineering training and repeat process. That's hugely valuable. Working within the consulting field, and a lot of big consulting agencies look for PhD trainees. So that is something that is of utmost importance in the business world. The one thing that I probably would encourage a lot of PhD trainees to do is to work, we talk a lot about, is the softer skills, the introspective skills, the personality skills, the communication skills, because you're going to interact with so many different people across the board to be able to provide the value, your analytical side, but to be able to communicate to the social side. And like Phong provided tons of support ways of thinking about mental frameworks. And so I would encourage everybody to like start thinking about like self-developmental books and things of this nature. There are tons of TED Talks and stuff around there, but start to really do the introspective work to say what resonates with you, and meaning what speaks to you. And there are a lot of different techniques, of psychological techniques to help. But again, your bonus is the fact that you have an analytical brain. You can deduce critical thinking. That's, oh my God, it's huge. At least from my perspective and my experience with working with so many scientists for the past decade.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. That's wonderful insight. I do want to take a minute just to, because I know some folks have to hop off right at 1. And so I want to have a chance to make sure I do share just quick wrap up notes, and then we can get back. I think there's some questions, but just for homework for y'all today to continue with the certificate series, reflect on some of these insights that our panelists have shared so far and identify 2 or 3 learnings or strategies that you want to utilize in your upcoming transition. And then to prep for our last session, our in-person networking mixer, make sure to connect with 2 folks who are attending on LinkedIn. Let them know you're going to be there. And that way you can kind of learn about the folks that are going to be there as well. And so their names and LinkedIn are on our syllabus. So I will send out more information, of course, as we're coming forward to that date, but just want to put that out there for folks who do have to hop off. Okay. Well, panelists, I know if you have to hop off as well, you can, and I want to make sure that we all give them a round of applause for their insights. We do have some questions coming in, and so if one of you want to, or a couple of you can stick around and maybe answer some of those, that'd be great. But see lots of applause, some finger snaps up there as well for you all. So thank you so much. There was a question in the chat. Cindy put in there. Feeling that people aren't really staying in positions very long. And so are there things that folks can do? And Joanne, you already answered that in the chat, that you should be assessing for in that first year, if it is a position that you want to stay in. What are some of the things that you all have looked for in that first year to make that decision?
Yeah, so I can clarify my answer with something that is more personal to me. I did not imagine myself in a government role. Like, that was not on my radar. I did not, envision that I'm going to be working for FDA in particular. But what was very surprising was a mixture of the environment that I'm in. There's such a high level of integrity and trust and respect that I was like, oh my goodness, I know why people want to stay. And then there's obviously the financial aspects of, okay, great, I have potentially a pension at the end of the day, right? But some questions and reflections that I got from my friends and my community is that they noticed I was just a generally more cheerful person. The environment, that workspace, was influencing me to be happier, to be more joyful, to be more content. And I think that's a really, important question to reflect on. Is this making you happy? Should I stay longer? Other questions that I wonder, and me going in strategically, I want it to be in medical devices. I want it to be at a forefront of innovation, of technology to help with human health and well-being. This really adheres to who I am as a person. And is this a stepping stone then? Where do I want to take this? Where does this fall into sort of the grand scheme of where you're going in life? And do you have to have that all figured out on that first year? Because sometimes you might not be able to have that final conclusion. I can see myself in this role 7 to 8 years down the road, 10 to 20. I could also see myself pivoting in a few years to pursue more of a consultant type of role to help more innovation come in and actually bring those technology into market. And so I would question, do you have to have this answered in your first year? And when you sit in that position where you are now, where you are later, reflect and take time to think, hey, am I doing well? Am I doing okay? And ask your friends and family members, do I seem happier? Do I seem content? Or is it all negative? And do I need to actually remove myself from this environment? So it's a long answer of it depends.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Good advice. You don't necessarily have to make that decision either, right away. Great. I know we do have some folks in here who are looking specifically for internships, and I know we've talked about some of the larger transitions, and we are at 1, so if you need to hop off, feel free. But does anyone have any insights on kind of that transition into an internship and how to kind of thrive in that space?
Well, I think some of the things we've discussed so far also make sense for an internship, right? So having clear expectations about what success looks like, what you're aiming for, are all very important and will help you see what you're supposed to target, right? Bye, Damien. Nice to meet you. And will help you stay focused and on task, right? But I think beyond that, an internship is an amazing opportunity to learn about a specific company or a specific sector, to network with people, right? It's your opportunity, it's your open door to actually getting to know more folks in that sector. I've done a couple of internships as well when I was still in France, and that helped me immensely to actually realize that the kind of work they were doing, or the kind of work I did during my internship, was not going to be a work I would do for my life. And so that's also a good time for you. It's like a temporary experience for you to assess and decide whether this is for you or not for you. And because it's temporary, even if it's difficult or even if it's sometimes complicated, you can keep the deadline, in your mind and see, okay, I have to stay on this and stay on course for maybe this few weeks, but then I don't have to do this for the rest of my life. But I'm sure Joanne will have more inputs.
Yeah, no, those are excellent points that you made, Béné. A topic that has been coming up often and something that I celebrate a lot is this thought of public service and how can I help others? And when you're in a role of an intern, you are almost exactly that. You are there to help. How can I make operation go faster? How can I meet the marks? How can I, even in your roles as a full-time employee, how can I make my advisor look good? How can I make my supervisor look good? How can I uplift my team such that we all succeed? And I think if you're thinking of those questions of what is the end goal that the team is trying to accomplish and how can I get them there either faster, more efficient, or, how can I do this better? How can we reimagine this such that it becomes better for everyone? And I think that is just a natural sense that I have of or not sense, but rather questions that I always ask of how can I help someone else be more excellent? And to me, that has served me. Another aspect of it is not just what you do during your internship, but what you do after your internship. Of my internships, so the first one that I had gotten, I had continued to build my relationship with these folks. I still go out with dinner with them. I still hang out with them. And they are still my friends and they keep me afloat. They told me that the things that I worked on as an intern, that I was building some medical ID cards, they turned that into utilizing it for 15,000 medical ID cards. So now I know what impact I created. Now that has, since historically been put to sleep because of other regulations, but that's a very clear line of your impact to a company as an intern because you've maintained your relationship with them after, and that bleeds into that sense of excellence afterwards where you're able to actually see what impact you created. I would highly recommend that you continue your relationship. You should have already a good relationship then, but then thereafter, you should continue to maintain that pathway of communication. Give heads up, take them out for lunch, have coffee, catch up. These are folks who are going to continue to be in your community. And I think I realized that especially for medical devices, depending on the industry that you go into, there are so many folks who are still there, and it's such a small community, especially in Southern California, that you're going to run into the same folks again and again. So maybe not now, but maybe later, that sense of excellency and that ability to point to, hey, I did exactly that, and that was my impact for that company. And by the way, we're still really great friends. You will be able to help serve yourself down the line.
Wonderful. Thank you both so much and for sticking around a couple minutes after. I'm going to be respectful of your time, but we appreciate your insights, and I know our career transition series attendees do as well. So thank you so much. For those who are left, if you want to give some extra kudos to Béné and Joanne for joining us, that would be great. And we will be in touch, but thank you again and appreciate your time. And I will talk to both of you, I'm sure, sometime soon. Oh, Jose, you have a question, if, possibly?
No, sorry, I meant to put the clapping emoji, but I put the raise hand one.
Okay, not a problem. All right. Bye, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.
Bye. Thank you.